and we had this amazing component of huntsmen. So first it started with the visual inspiration going back and forth. At the same time, we built like a color story that I put together. And very quickly we had to put together this film, and Graham was really involved in the process. I say to the power of technology, I was able to be on Zoom and see my dailies every day and production calls. And, every detail was put together in this film, and it's quite subtle, but actually a lot went into the thought process of like what a Savile Row cutter tailor would be doing in Chicago in the mid 50s, and what would those suits look like, because the British suit of that time period, or what even Mark wears in the film, is very different than stylistically what was about to happen and happening in like gangster style, which was, looking at a lot of, early crooners and different elements, but it was still tied to the past.
Right.
Kind of before the world went modern, right? It's like
Right.
right before that period. And I thought that was really interesting. And how to develop, costumes and costumes that really help support the character and the actors, because that's what good costumes should do. It shouldn't feel like shouldn't be like a costume drama, because it would go too campy then, right? And this we had
Right.
to be very focused that it was really about the words and the storytelling and subtleties, because the film kind of flows and then it builds, right? And
Right.
it's surprising. The arc of the film is a surprising arc. And it takes place in one setting, and it's quite dark and moody. And the colors and textures of the suits kind of come out in the close-ups, and then it's quite
Yeah.
subtle.
It's very subtle. To get you here, what do you consider like your first big break, like back in the day? Like, I could give you my opinion of when, you
My
burst onto the
first
scene,
big
but
my first big break. I mean, I think that um first big break, I mean, I think there's a few kind of major components that happened. I mean, the New York Times wrote a piece when I was in design school called "The Star Is Born" in what was then the fashion of the Times, which is now T Magazine. And that was kind of like a writer saw a dress of mine at a party, right? And it was like they found me, and it was like the story of this dress and where I was. And I was like a kid on my Christmas break back home, but I was like in London kind of making, you know, these like one of a kind t-shirts that were chopped up, tea stained, velvet trimmed with leather epaulets that I would be selling at like small little stores. And at the same time, I had met Naomi Campbell. She had seen a piece of clothing of mine and kind of tracked it down and wanted to meet me. And that's kind of where I'd say like that it started. And then I had amazing angels and mentors along the way, from Cal Ruttenstein, who was kind of like an icon in fashion and was, ran Bloomingdale's, and Isabella Blow. And then I think, pretty quickly into that, Natalie Portman wore a dress of mine from my first full runway show. I'd done 2 collections, and my first full runway show, and she wore that to the premiere of Star Wars
right.
in New York. And that was a big breakthrough moment, because I remember waking up that next morning, and again, we're talking like, I don't know, 2002, I think, probably, and like it was on the cover of like the Post and the Daily News. And it's like premieres happen, but like celebrities and like a dress and a moment don't always make it to the cover of, I think it was like on that, and it was like on the back flip of the New York Times in a smaller photo, but it was like on the cover of 3 major newspapers. And I just knew that and from the press that was happening, like that was like a major moment. And besides that, I don't know, I still think I haven't arrived.
You
Every day
do?
is like a
Really?
new, yeah, I think like each project is its next arrival. I mean, I feel confident in work I've made and contributions I've made, but like every day is a new day.
Interesting. Were you, I mean, like early 20s, were you nervous when like someone like, a Naomi Campbell is like tracking you down? And I mean, were you, that's kind of a big thing, were you like, oh my God, it's Naomi Campbell? Or you were like, okay, this is work. I can handle this.
It was exciting. I mean, I was just anything to like get my foot in the door or to be part of it, was really, really exciting and thrilling. And I was just like, you kind of go with it, right? You kind of go with that gusto and ride the winds. And then it becomes survival mode, building in survival mode for a long time.
Totally. What's it like? There's so much written about her, throwing phones and airplanes. What's it like to actually work with Naomi Campbell? Like you've worked with her a lot throughout your career.
Naomi is incredibly generous and professional and passionate and truly a deeply, deeply caring person, and believes, strongly in the importance and power of fashion, but also, as a humanitarian, and she's quite an extraordinary woman. And, she has, built herself into, into an incredible empire in business. And it's an amazing watching her through different journeys of that.
Totally. What was it like after that Natalie Portman dress? Because I remember that was everywhere too. I mean, was it like you said, it was on the cover and the back and was it really like
Yeah.
then? It was like a whirlwind, like, oh my God, my phone was ringing before, but now I don't know what
I
day it
had
is.
started. I mean, I was doing like, I in that time period, I mean, I just can't remember. Oh, I didn't have a cell phone, so I'll put it that way. That was like you had to call the studio. But pretty shortly after that, once you're in fashion, on the fashion kind of treadmill or on the roller coaster, it doesn't get off, right? It's like you have a collection every 6 months, then it becomes every 3 months. So pretty quickly after that second collection, I had started my business in my parents' living room loft space, which is where I'm working now, which is kind of full circle in this crazy way because they live in the country. But it was on to the next collection, right? And it was kind of like, how are we going to put on the next collection? I don't come from a trust fund. Like this was really like putting the shit together and figuring out how to fund this and raise sponsorship. And it was pretty whirlwind, just what I would say. It just didn't, it was on to the next collection already.
What about, so many designers, I think, work like, well, first of all, a lifetime and never achieve, some of the opportunities and success that you have had. But certainly even those that do, it happens like later in life to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Did you appreciate this? They say like, youth is wasted on the young. That saying, like, did you appreciate all this when you were early 20s and like had all of this happening?
I think when you're so young and all that, when you have so much attention on you, and I think through my career, I think it becomes somewhat, it can be something enticing, right? I think you just kind of, I was very primed for it in a way. Like it used a lot of different kind of skill sets of mine, and some probably that were not to my benefit, I would say. Like, fashion has a way of celebrating, using, and then disposing of